My name is Rachel. I'm 35 years old. Last night at my father-in-law's birthday, my mother-in-law handed 3 brand new iPhone 16 Pro Max to her real grandchildren, then looked at my daughter, Sophie, and said, "Not for you." Her hands shook. Would you let them get away with that? But that wasn't even the worst part. Sophie is 10 years old. She's not my biological child, she's my late sister's daughter, and I adopted her after the accident. To me, she is my daughter in every way that matters, which is why that night still plays in my head like a movie I wish I could burn. It was my father-in-law Howard's 60th birthday. We'd decided to host the celebration at our home because our dining room was big enough for the 30 guests Daniel's family insisted on inviting. I'd spent the whole day making sure the tables were set perfectly, the wine was chilled, and the food came out on time. Midway through dessert, my mother-in-law Evelyn stood up and tapped her glass with a spoon. Her face lit up in that grand, dramatic way she loved to use when all eyes were on her. "I have a special gift for the grandchildren," she announced. The room quieted. My stomach tightened. Evelyn reached into a decorative gift bag and pulled out a sleek white box, the Apple logo catching the light. Gasps and excited murmurs spread through the table. "One for Nathan," she said, handing the first iPhone 16 Pro Max to Vanessa's oldest son. He tore off the wrapping paper like it was Christmas morning. "One for Lily," she continued, passing another to Vanessa's daughter. Evelyn beamed as if she'd personally handcrafted the devices. "And for Connor," she said, holding out the third to Lucas's boy, who grinned wide enough to split his face. Then Evelyn turned towards Sophie. For a second, I actually thought she had saved the best for last. Sophie's face lit up. She even sat a little taller in her chair. But Evelyn's smile was the kind that never reached her eyes. "Oh, sweetheart, these are just for the biological grandkids. You still have your old phone, don't you?" The laughter that followed wasn't loud, but it was enough. Howard chuckled low and added, "Blood is blood." Evelyn's right. Vanessa chimed in with her sugary voice. "Don't take it personally, Rachel. It's just family tradition." Sophie's lips pressed together. Her small hands trembled in her lap. I reached for her under the table, but she pulled away, staring at the floor. I'd been through Evelyn's brand of cruelty before. But that night, something shifted, because they'd just forgotten one thing I knew how to give gifts to. I should have seen it coming. When I married Daniel 12 years ago, his family welcomed me with polite smiles that never quite reached their eyes. They were the kind of people who measured worth in lineage, last names, and the weight of your family tree. Evelyn, my mother-in-law, was the queen of that little hierarchy, always dressed in tailored blazers, pearl earrings, and a perfume that could suffocate you from 10 feet away. She had a way of talking about family as if the word meant blood relatives only, and she never made an exception for Sophie. Howard, my father-in-law, didn't say much, but silence can be just as dangerous as words. He stood behind Evelyn like her shadow, agreeing with her, without moving his lips. Vanessa Daniel's older sister was friendly in the way you'd expect from someone who can smile at you while she's tightening the knife in your back. She'd mastered the art of pretending kindness in public while feeding Evelyn every little thing that could make me look inadequate. Lucas Daniel's younger brother lived 2 states away and rarely visited, which was a blessing considering that when he did, he and Vanessa would huddle with Evelyn and talk about real family, like it was a club Sophie and I would never be invited to join. Sophie entered my life when she was 3. My sister Mia had been a single mom, and when the car accident took her away, I didn't hesitate for a second. Sophie became my world. She was shy but bright with a quiet resilience I admired. She also carried a deep longing for belonging, a longing Evelyn seemed determined to crush. For years, I'd tried to keep the peace. I told myself that enduring Evelyn's coldness was better than starting a war, but there were moments, little ones, where the cracks showed. Like the time Evelyn gave Sophie a second-hand sweater for Christmas while handing Vanessa's kids envelopes stuffed with cash, or when she made jokes about Sophie's curly hair not fitting in with the Morgan look. Daniel claimed it was harmless. "That's just how my mom is," he'd say, as if tradition excused cruelty. I believed him until the day they moved in. because 6 months ago, everything changed. 6 months ago, Evelyn and Howard's empire crumbled. A bad investment real estate in Florida that couldn't possibly fail drained their savings overnight. The lake house was sold, the golf club membership vanished, and suddenly the people who measured worth in possessions had none. Daniel came to me one evening, his voice tentative. They need a place to stay, just until they figure things out. I hesitated. The idea of having Evelyn under my roof made my stomach tighten, but Sophie's soft voice broke the silence. "They can stay in the guest house, right, Mom?" I looked at her. Sweet Sophie, always seeing the best in people who didn't deserve it. I agreed, but only after making Daniel promise out loud that Sophie would be respected, treated like every other grandchild. He nodded, swore it wouldn't be an issue. At first it wasn't. Evelyn and Howard kept to themselves, their pride still bruised from the fall. For a few weeks, I almost believed maybe the bankruptcy had humbled them. Then the small things started. Sophie would greet Evelyn with a cheerful good morning in the kitchen, only to be met with a distracted nod, while Evelyn turned to gush over Vanessa's kids in family group chats. Birthday cards for Sophie were signed with just Evelyn and Howard, no personal note, no warmth, while Vanessa's kids got gift bags stuffed with designer accessories. And then there were the comments, always framed as compliments but laced with a sting. "That dress is cute on you, Sophie, though it might look better if your hair was straighter. You're such a polite girl considering..." Well, I knew exactly what she meant. Sophie did too. Daniel brushed it off. "She doesn't mean harm. She just doesn't think before she speaks." But I knew better. Evelyn thought before she spoke. She calculated, and each remark was a deliberate reminder to Sophie that she was an outsider. By the time summer rolled around, the air in the house was heavy with unspoken tension. I could feel it in the way Sophie lingered in her room instead of joining us for dinner, or the way she hesitated before speaking when Evelyn was around. I told myself I could endure it for Sophie's sake, that keeping peace was better than igniting a fire. But then, a week before Howard's birthday party, I found something in our bank account that told me the war had already started, and I was the last to know. It started with a random Tuesday evening and my habit of checking our joint account before paying the monthly bills. I scrolled through the transactions, utilities, groceries, Sophie's school lunch fund, until one charge made me freeze. $5,000. Gone. The memo line read, "Tuition payment, Van's college fund, Vanessa." I sat there, my hands tightening around the mouse, my pulse thrumming in my ears. Vanessa's oldest was starting at a private university that cost more than my first year's salary out of college. We hadn't discussed helping them. In fact, just 2 months ago, when Sophie begged to enroll in a summer art program for $300, Daniel had told her we didn't have the budget. I called him immediately. "Daniel, why is there a $5,000 payment to Vanessa's kids' tuition from our account?" His sigh was long, almost rehearsed. "Rachel." Evelyn and Vanessa came to me. They said it was important to invest in our bloodline first, that it's family tradition to help the kids get the best start, our bloodline. My voice cracked, part rage, part disbelief. "She's our daughter, Daniel. You told Sophie no for $300, but yes for $5,000 to Vanessa's kid." He hesitated, then said the words that burned. "She's not... Evelyn doesn't see her as the same." And they made it sound like it was just the right thing to do. I could picture the conversation. Evelyn, her voice dripping with false sweetness, convincing Daniel that real family came first. Vanessa chiming in with some sanctimonious nonsense about tradition. I didn't yell. I didn't even hang up on him. I just went quiet. Because this wasn't just about $5,000. This was about principle, about respect, about what they thought they could get away with. That night after Sophie was asleep, I sat at my desk and pulled out a yellow legal pad. I wrote down everything. The birthdays ignored, the comments about her hair, the Christmas gifts that cost less than a dinner entree, the tuition payment. I didn't know exactly what I'd do yet, but I knew this. I wouldn't let this pass. Not because I wanted revenge for myself, but because Sophie deserved to see what it looked like when someone fought for her without apology, and they were about to find out I wasn't just keeping score. The next morning, I didn't greet Evelyn in the kitchen. I poured my coffee, grabbed my laptop, and shut myself in the home office. If they thought I was going to play the meek, hurt daughter-in-law, they didn't know me at all. I wasn't going to scream or beg. I was going to build something they couldn't talk their way out of. First stop, my lawyer. I laid out the situation from their temporary stay in our guest house to the way they had treated Sophie. I even pulled up the video from the party where Evelyn had made her little only for blood announcement, the camera catching Sophie's trembling hands. He didn't hesitate. Rachel, they're not tenants under a formal lease. Under Washington law, you can serve them a 30-day notice to vacate if you can prove a hostile environment, especially toward a minor in the home. And with this video, you can prove it. I left his office with a template for the notice already in my inbox. Back home, I started digging deeper. A friend who worked at the local electronics store confirmed Evelyn had purchased 3 iPhone 16 Pro Max units, $300 each, just days before the party. The payment had been made with a cashier's check from the sale of a small piece of property she'd forgotten to mention to anyone. Then came the text messages. Vanessa wasn't careful with her words. A screenshot from her phone, courtesy of a mutual acquaintance, showed her writing to Evelyn, "We have to make sure Sophie understands her place. If she sees the difference, she'll get it. They wanted my daughter to see the difference. They wanted her to feel less than." Finally, I pulled our bank records showing Daniel's transfer of $5,000 for Vanessa's kids' tuition, sitting right there next to the $300 art program Sophie never got. By the time Daniel came home that night, I had it all neatly organized in a binder, video evidence of the party, screenshots of texts, bank statements, property sale receipts. I didn't confront him. Not yet. I needed him to see it all at the same time Evelyn and Howard did, because when this went down, there would be no denials, no gaslighting, no rewriting of the facts. They would see exactly what they'd done. And then they would leave. The night after the party, I waited until Daniel was home, the dishes were done, and the house was quiet. Evelyn and Howard were in the guest house watching TV. I walked over, binder in hand, and knocked on their door. Howard answered, looking irritated. "What is it, family meeting?" I said evenly. "Living room, now." 5 minutes later, Evelyn, Howard, and Daniel were sitting on the couch. Sophie was upstairs out of earshot. I set the binder on the coffee table and flipped it open to the first page. A still frame from the party video, Evelyn mid-sentence saying "only for blood," while Sophie's smile faltered. The next page, the full video. I hit play. No one spoke. Then came the screenshot of Vanessa's text. "We have to make sure Sophie understands her place. If she sees the difference, she'll get it." Evelyn's jaw tightened. That's taken out of context. I turned the page. Bank records. $5,000 out of the joint account to Vanessa's kids' tuition. $300 art program denied for Sophie, noted in Daniel's handwriting. Daniel's face went pale. Then the property sale receipt. The funds used to buy the 3 iPhones. I looked directly at Evelyn. You had money. You chose to spend it on everyone except Sophie, and you wanted her to feel it. Evelyn straightened, her voice icy. "She's not my granddaughter. You can't force us to pretend." I leaned forward, my voice calm but final. "No, but I can force you to pack your bags. This is my house. And you've created a hostile environment for a child who lives here. You have 30 days to leave." Howard scoffed. "Daniel won't let you do that." I didn't look away. Daniel's name isn't on the deed. Mine is. And unless either of you wants this evidence shared with the rest of the family and possibly an attorney, there's nothing to discuss. Evelyn looked at Daniel for backup. He stared at the floor. I can't defend this, Mom." The silence that followed was heavier than anything I'd felt in that house before. They knew I wasn't bluffing. I closed the binder, stood and said 30 days. No exceptions. Then I walked upstairs, leaving them with nothing but the sound of their own breathing. They didn't even make it to 30 days. By the end of week 2, Evelyn had packed every piece of monogrammed luggage she owned and shoved Howard into the driver's seat of their aging SUV. They left without a word, not even a glance towards Sophie. The guest house looked cleaner than it had in months, sterile almost, but the air in our home felt lighter the moment their car rolled out of the driveway. Vanessa called Daniel 2 days later, furious. Without Evelyn and Howard funneling help her way, she was suddenly staring at bills she couldn't pay. Her voice dripped venom over the speakerphone. "You're punishing my kids for some petty grudge." Daniel's tone was flat. "Your kids still have their $1,300 iPhones. Sophie's been without her art program for months. Don't call here again." That was the moment I knew he finally understood. By the end of the month, Sophie and I walked into the Apple store. She hesitated in front of the display, her small fingers hovering over the newest models. "Do you want the same one they gave the others?" I asked. She shook her head, her voice quiet but certain. "I want one that's mine, not theirs." We chose a model a step down from the 16 Pro Max sleek light blue, perfect for her hands. While the clerk rang it up, I pulled a phone case from my bag, custom made with silver lettering. "Family is love, not blood." Sophie traced the words with her thumb, then threw her arms around me. "Thank you, Mom." That night, we had takeout on the living room floor, just the 3 of us. Daniel poured sparkling cider into glasses and raised his. To Sophie, he said, looking at her the way a father should, "May you never doubt where you belong." Sophie grinned, her new phone resting beside her. I clinked my glass against hers, then Daniel's feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the drink. As I watched her scroll through photos of her friends laughing at their goofy faces, I realized the lesson Evelyn thought she was teaching had backfired. They wanted her to know her place, and now she did right in the center of my heart where no one could touch her. Some victories are loud. Mine was the kind that left my house quiet, my family safe, and my enemies watching from the outside. If you think Sophie deserved better, hit that like button. And if you've ever had to protect someone you love from family like this, tell me your story in the comments. I read every single one. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories of quiet revenge and poetic justice, because sometimes the best payback is peace.